For 20 years, we've been creating innovation in the CX industry, and now we're seeking out brilliant new perspectives on CX you just won't find anywhere else. I'm Richard Owen. Welcome to the CX Iconoclast. My guest today, Steve Byrne, would almost certainly not have a business to run if it weren't for the differential power of customer experience. He's the CEO of Travel Counsellors. And as I told him at the close of our interview, it's a company I particularly admire for living by its own rules and doing right by every person involved in its value chain, not just customers, but employees and partners. I was glad to talk with him about how he approaches these intersecting obligations and about how the business is thriving despite what could be considered countervailing market trends, especially given that we just had a pandemic. At Travel Counsellors, vacationers, and for that matter, business travelers, work with independent travel counselors who personally plan and support their travel. Steve led the acquisition of Travel Counsellors from its founders in 2014, and today the company has a network of 2,100 independent travel counselors operating in 5 countries. The company enjoyed steady growth of around 15 to 20% for more than about 20 years. And although COVID decimated the business, its bounce back was impressive, historic. This year, it expects to have about £1 billion in transactions. And for those of you who can't do the translation, that's about $1.2 billion, I should say. Now, it must be said that all this is perhaps the more impressive given the massive shift we constantly talk about towards self-service, automation, and travel. Steve chalks it up to the fundamental differentiator of the company, which is delivering a customer experience that people deeply value. At the same time, he also emphasized the importance of adapting to a changing world. So on one hand, taking advantage of technology, but also recognizing its impact. A few points stood out for me in particular. For Steve, the ultimate success metric is lifetime value of the customer, not surprisingly. Travel counselors explicitly include referrals in their valuation, and the business supports its efforts to maximize customer lifetime value outcomes by tracking and acting on several measures along the way. There's entrepreneurial value in working with the data you've got, Steve would argue, rather than waiting for a perfect data set. Embrace being a work in progress. Travel counselors seems also incredibly adept at using technology and data in service of its strategic competitive advantage. That advantage comes from the value of ongoing human relationships. So technology and people, that's a fascinating alchemy. Enjoy the conversation. Well, Steve, thanks very much for joining me today. So when I think of travel counselors, I have to say, a couple of things always spring to mind. The first thing, and I don't know to what degree you ever reveal any public financials, but this is a big business, right? And I think most people, when I describe the business to them, probably don't get a sense of the scale of the enterprise. I'm not sure how comfortable you are talking about size, but can you give people an indication of how big this business has become?
Yeah, I'm very, very happy to. So we have now about 2,100 travel entrepreneurs who run their own independent businesses powered by our platform and connecting to each other, building a community through our platform. In terms of transactions, this calendar year, we hope to surpass the £1 billion worth of total transaction value processed through the platform, and that is across the 5 countries that we are in. So that's the scale of it. And those 2,000 travel entrepreneurs are supported by a support team of about 330 based here in the UK and our offices across the globe.
That's an incredible story, and it's a big growth story. Not just in the last couple of years with COVID, but you've had pretty reliable growth over a decade or so.
Yeah, I mean we've had steady growth. So we've averaged 15 to 20% growth every year for a period of sort of 20 plus years. Clearly, that was the same going into COVID. So March 2020, it seems like a lifetime ago. We were still 15, 20% up on a £700 million business. £100 million is the same in euros and not far off dollars now. So £700 million business. Obviously, the business was decimated in COVID, but we've had a profound recovery and bounce back, and we're currently trading about 60% above pre-pandemic levels, heading towards that billion.
Well, so a lot of upside opportunity. So that's the first thing I think people probably don't understand about the business, how big it is. The second, perhaps, if you could talk about the fundamental nature of the business, what it is you guys do, because I think, again, that's something that probably is not well understood.
I mean, the business is based on some fundamentals, which I'll come back to. But in simple terms, we provide a platform, the essence of which is a technology platform that enables anyone who's interested and has got the right requisite skills and ability to care for customers to build a travel business. So they can find customers, they provide them with tailored travel solutions and advice, and they can arrange their bookings and book their travel for them using our platform. And then through the platform, they access the product, the technology, the commercial deals, the licensing, and then a range of other support. And they effectively outsource through the platform the back office part of their business to us. The platform takes care of that, and people do it for a lifestyle choice, work-life balance, flexibility, and they also do it to make a better living for themselves. And they can be hugely successful at it. The economic model means that if they're successful, they can tend to earn more than they could in a conventional employment model. But the business is predicated on three fundamentals. First of all, we do the right thing by our customers. We do a wonderful job looking after our customers, that they come back to us and they refer us to their family and friends. The business doesn't have any bricks and mortar shops, doesn't spend money on advertising to generate customer leads. All of our business is based on retention and referral. And the second fundamental part of our model is that we empower the travel counsellor and the support team, support the travel counsellors, to do the right thing by their customers. So we get the fundamentals right, looking after customers, looking after the people who look after their customers. That's both our travel counsellor and our colleagues. So those three fundamental reference points, in a plethora of KPIs that we can all get agitated about, the three critical ones for us are customer loyalty and advocacy, travel counsellor loyalty and advocacy, and our colleague, which is our support team, loyalty and advocacy. If we get those three things right, then we'll have a great business. And the wrapper around all of that is care. So we keep ourselves honest in every touch point. Does it feel like we're caring? Are we caring as much as we possibly can for our customers and our people?
Yeah, in some ways, it's a business that only exists because people want a better experience from navigating their travel requirements. Because absent that, I mean, people can do everything themselves in theory, right? Yeah. So you're literally selling an experience. I think the way you frame it in terms of how you service this community of independent agents, the nearest analog I always think of is in the financial universe, where you have independent financial planners and the platforms are provided by the big brokerage houses, and essentially give them the ability to be independent financial planners, right? And that seems very, very similar in some ways. There's a channel there for your product, but really at the end of the day, it's the independent agents that are the sort of franchise, aren't they, for your business?
Absolutely, it's very similar model. I sort of hope, evidence through the advocacy of the people that we've got, that we extend it into something deeper than just a transaction, as in we provide a service to them that helps them run their independent business. What's very difficult to get across, even in this conversation, but you felt it, I think, in previous interchanges, is the sense of community that exists within our business. So the reciprocity, the kindness and the care, the friendships, the offers of help and advice that travel counsellors offer their peers. Not everyone does it, because some people like to keep themselves to themselves. They decide how they want to operate. But if, for example, I was in a room and to ask our travel counsellors, how many of them got through COVID because of the support of their fellow travel counsellors, a lot of people would put their hands up. So the human glue of the business, the relationships that are forged, facilitated by the physical platform and the face-to-face connectivity that we encourage, and the culture. That's the thing that's difficult to quantify, but is the thing that makes us different. That human glue, and I think you can relate to this. We talked about it in the past. The trust equation, whatever variant of it you use, but consistency of behaviour and frequency of contact underscored by the degree or lack of self-interest. We try and do that with customers, but we also try and do it with the people that service the customers and lead like that. So I don't know if that strikes a chord with people, but I think it was really interesting what you said at the start. It's fundamentally true that every customer that we got could choose to organise their travel themselves, but they're choosing to use a travel counsellor, a fellow human being, to guide them, because they're getting something that they don't get by doing it themselves. And many people do it themselves, but that human overlay, that care, the intimacy that the counsellor can provide, and the trust that they can build over a period of time, that's what sustains the business.
And I think that, I know this is probably a question you get asked a lot over the years, because if I think when we first met, which has to be over 10 years ago, I think one of the first things I recall thinking was, wow, this business exists, right? The idea that there's a space in the market for this, because, and I think for people who aren't that familiar with the UK, or certainly not my age familiar with the UK, they won't remember an era where the high street was populated with travel agents, and if you wanted, to get away, you walked down the high street, you walked into a travel agent, you sat down, you looked through brochures, and you booked a sort of all-encompassing package holiday deal, which would include a flight, hotel, the whole thing. And that industry essentially got decimated by the online booking agents, the internet in general, moving everything online. And so the natural cause of events, and if you'd have asked me in the late 90s, I'd have said, yeah, that it's done and dusted. That industry's gone, right? We know that how everyone's going to book travel, it's all going to be online. You've recognized that there's a segment of the market that actually wants that degree of service, and is presumably, because logically, pays a premium for it, because there's a cost added to this. And so it's part of the story of travel counselors is really a lesson in understanding that there are segments of the market, quite large segments, that do want differential products and services, and can be well served, and can become very big businesses.
Yeah, the market quickly moved, about half of it moved online. It's been pretty stable for a period of time. Let's see what happens in the next few years with the development of tech. And I think, in a transactional world, it's very difficult to compete with technology. And if that's what people are looking for, we want to use technology as a tool to enable us to be efficient and effective, but also to evidence that we can care more and offer people that peace of mind. All of the research has shown a couple of things, that one of the few positive things that come out of COVID is an appreciation. Well, a few things on an appreciation by many people of just the joy of travel, the joy of experiencing the world. Life's too short. I want to go and experience things that
revenge travel.
Yeah, a wonderful planet can offer in time with loved ones and family and friends, and it's reinforced and reminded a sizable number of people of the benefit of booking with someone that you can trust, that offers you that peace of mind. And we were one of the few businesses, not the only one, few businesses whose brand reputation was enhanced as a result in the middle of COVID, because of the way we looked after customers, and we were there for them and offering advice and amending bookings, etc. There are a sizable number of the population, certainly in the countries that we operate in, that we've identified in our independent market research, that appreciate a conversation, a discussion, face-to-face or using social media platforms about travel, showcasing their travel, talking about travel, and booking with someone who will help them experience the world, and increasingly do that in a sustainable way, and to get professional advice on that. And when the model works, it's going to sound a bit strange if you've never experienced it, but when the model works, the frequency of the interaction means that over time you do form a relationship with that travel counsellor, and you get to trust them. Now that trust has to be earned. Now that doesn't happen in a lot of service-based organisations, but that's because we encourage, and our travel counsellors are brilliant at keeping in touch with the customer. So not just to be there for them when they bought from us, but actually to build a relationship with them and show care for you after you consume what we've offered. Stay in contact so that you're in people's front of mind digitally, through our app, for example, or through other means. So when people want to consume again, they're thinking about us. But we win when we relate. If we just transact and all we care about is taking your money and booking the holiday, then we're probably not going to be able to compete with online tech businesses.
So you talked about those sort of three key things you measure. I mean, how do you go about quantifying your performance on the relationships you have with, obviously the independent counselors, but also the customers?
I mean, the ultimate metric is in the lifetime value of the customer that we generate. That's the end result. So we use a customer satisfaction score at the time of booking, which uses the NPS scoring methodology. So it's, and you know the methodology better as well as I do. So we use that score at the time of booking, and we also ask for feedback using Trustpilot after the holiday. And that's visibility at an individual travel counsellor level. And we also use the same principles in engagement measures for our travel counsellors and for our colleagues on a routine, systematic, regular basis. And we also seek feedback from people who decided not to use us. And that's both quantifiable feedback, let's get a score for that, and also qualitative feedback about why not, and what could we have done better. And I think there is a skill, I'm not saying we've mastered it, but as you get bigger, there's a risk you become further removed from the customer or the person using your services. So we have a number of channels in place so that customers and travel counsellors can keep us honest and can drive and influence our programme of change and improvement. So it's always rooted in improving the experience for them.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned engagement of the counsellors. So it seems like, to get a great customer experience in the end of the value chain, you've got to have, as you said, engaged employees who are interacting with engaged counsellors who are interacting with customers who see the benefit of it. So there's this value chain that essentially gets created, and when it works at its best, the customer, the end consumer, must perceive that this is, this is all working, for them and actually working to deliver a great result. And so are you capable of joining up the dots? Can you look at the connection between the end consumer experience and the counselor's execution and your own team?
Yeah, I don't think you can't, it's dangerous, I think, to isolate them. So we look at it across the board because they're so interdependent. I think there's a few observations there. So as many of your sort of watchers and listeners will know, that most modern progressive businesses that have got the auspices to do so will have a CX type of program and investment in it, and it's critically important. And we all learn from best practice in that field. So let's be really, really good at that. I think there are sort of two reflections that I've got on it, and my views are ill-informed, because we're always learning, aren't we? The first is that it's great if you can try and look beyond the typical language. So what are we trying to achieve here? So excellent customer experience leads to what's the ultimate outcome here that makes your business different? So in our case, it is about building a relationship and building customer intimacy at a human-to-human level. That takes it beyond, I think, beyond broad customer experience into something deeper. And I think the second thing that's critically important, especially as you're scaling as a business, is that everything that you're doing is referenced back to your purpose and your vision. And you're not doing things that are tangential is dangerous to it, but even things that are not explicitly related back to your vision and purpose. There was a study that came out of the States, and it's very dated now, but I think the basics of it's true, is that some businesses could disappear and their consumer may not even notice, because they're not clear enough about why they exist and what customer demand they are not uniquely, but they are filling to better than anyone else. So we're clear about that. Doesn't mean that we've mastered it, but we want to be better at caring more than anyone else and building that intimacy. So how can we use the human connection and the technology to forge a more personal relationship with the customer? So you take everything back to your purpose, and I think that also helps you attract the right type of talent who buy into that as well.
And you mentioned that customer lifetime value. Do you explicitly look at that? How do you quantify that? Do you look at just repeat purchase rates, or do you actually able to sort of say, okay, I've got a very high value segment of customers, and we're able to essentially project forward the value of those customers? So perhaps talk a bit more about that.
I think it starts off with being clear, what customer market are you in? So you have a customer group, and every customer is important, and you treat that customer relationship with respect. But a number of businesses will have an ideal target customer market. So be clear about that. And then you evolve, I think. I think there's a real entrepreneurial skill in working with the data that you've got, and don't delay things because you've got gaps in data. That can follow. So ours is work in progress. So we currently don't master, I think, to the extent that we would want, customer lifetime value, but we do have really good insight on value of repeat business levels and rates, who our repeat customers are, and also who are our high referral customers. So you can be a high referrer, but not necessarily a high repeat customer.
How do you measure referrals?
So value of customers that are referred by the original referrer. So you may have done one booking, may not be what we do in a high value booker for whatever reason, but you could be a high value customer because you referred people to us. Remember, our business is a referral based business model. It's a £1 billion word of mouth business. So referrals are our lifeblood.
Yeah, that's a story I think I probably missed the first time I heard it. If referrals and word of mouth are your big driver, that makes a great deal of sense. It explains a lot of efficient growth as well. So when you're dealing with the travel counselor community, I mean, obviously you've got consumers who have a set of objectives, but all these, and I think it's right to characterize them as micro businesses essentially, right? Because they're essentially sole proprietary businesses to all intents and purposes.
I mean, that was the model, Richard. Half of the travel counsellors now work in teams, so they're scaling their business. So, the largest business we've got in our group at the moment I'm using sterling, but it's £20 million.
That's a decent business, right?
And they've got a team of, I think, in that case, they've got a team, I think, 6 or 8 people that are working in their business. And we also have, some travel counsellors who do directly employ people, so, family members or others as part of their business. So when we first started speaking 10 years ago, we used to look the same. I look about 110 years older as a result of COVID. 99% of the model was individual self-employed sole traders. That has moved quite radically in the past few years, which has enabled individual travel counsellor business owners to scale their business without necessarily directly employing people. But your basic summary is right, but the model is evolving, and we've got business owners now scaling their business as a result, because the platform enables them to connect identify capacity and skills,
Right.
and mix and match that to suit their individual needs.
So you obviously have to serve their requirements. What makes them successful or engaged is probably quite a different list than ultimately what the end customer wants, right? You must have a pretty well-developed understanding of not just what a micro business would want, but also these growing businesses probably have quite different requirements as well.
And it starts off, I think, with your value set is one of just complete respect for the fact that, as you have done, they've taken the bold step to have their own business. Not everyone does that. So whatever they decide to do with their business, we just got a huge amount of respect, whether they want to scale it or some people adjust their motives as their life journey changes. We provide the platform for them to elect what they want to do. We recognise high achievement, we recognise performance, we encourage it, but we would never condemn people who say, "Well, that's not for me at this moment in my life." But the platform, they draw on it in a way that suits them. If you've made this step to be a business owner, you've earned the right to craft that business in your own image. There's only one caveat to that, which is the service levels to customers have to be at a certain level and standard, because that is the brand proposition.
When one very bit of a change of direction, but one of the most talked about topics of the last 6-12 months has been GPT-4 or Chat GPT, as people tend to think about it, right? And people are using these technologies to interact with essentially large data sets and provide them with quote unquote advice. And there's been some pretty interesting stories about where that can lead people. But at the same time, I was just making a trip out to Japan the other week, and I asked ChatGPT for advice on traveling to Japan. It has some really interesting content, right? So when you look at these kind of technologies, are these assets or are these substitutes, do you think, or a combination of both?
I think, first of all, you've got to be aware of them. And you've got to keep up to date with what is happening and their potential. You're also mindful of how are early adopters using it. So there's a very large online travel business that you will have heard of that today have announced that they're deploying that in their customer experience model. What are the learnings from that? I think in business you have to have a mind on risk. So what risk does this prevent? And then also what opportunities does it create linked to your strategy? It's always going to be taken back to your strategy. And how can these tools be used in a way that contributes to, accelerates, exacerbates your strategic competitive advantage? So that's the way that I would view it. I don't think we should be afraid of it per se, just because it's a new radical innovation. But we need to be mindful of it in the ways that I think that I've just outlined.
Well, and there's obviously huge value in technology, especially technology that can organize information. But at the end of the day, there's we've got this huge period of evolution where we've learned how to interact with other human beings, and we get enormous value from that interaction. And we're not going to be fooled. And even if to some extent, and I speak this as a guy, obviously as I'm building an artificial intelligence business, so I'm pro this kind of technology. But it seems to me like customers aren't going to want to have misrepresentation of technology as human when it's not. They're going to want that distinction to be very clear. And I think they're going to want human interaction because they believe, and I think they're right, that other human beings are going to empathize and understand sincerely their position and their challenges, whereas technology will never fill that gap because inevitably it is artificial, right? And there's something about that value. At the same time, this technology just seems to offer great opportunities to co-pilot alongside the travel counselors to give them better tools. Last year, if we'd have been talking about this, we'd have probably been talking about the metaverse as a tool. And so the corollary to that is be careful, because you don't know what's actually going to turn out to be the big winner or when. So I think it seems like embracing these opportunities is always a sound strategy, but keep in mind at the end of the day that they're there to make people's lives better, and if they're not contributing to that, then they're not much use in their own right.
And I think, we're about building a personal digital platform to scale. So we use technology to augment the customer experience alongside the human overlay. We try and combine the best of both worlds. So we have to invest in these tools and use them to our competitive advantage. But it's a personal digital platform. It's not just a digital platform. Just anecdotally, we have a corporate part to our business. So we service the corporate entities who want to travel to connect with customers or suppliers. We're 12 months now, post-pandemic area. That part of the business is trading 50% more than it was before the pandemic. So this is business owners like you saying, I could have a Zoom call, but I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to go and see a customer and supplier because of the power of face-to-face interaction. I just think that's absolutely profound.
Well, you said early on that one thing that COVID taught people in some ways was the value of travel and meeting people and personal interactions. I think most people can identify that. We took this all for granted, and when it got taken away from us, we realized what a big part of our lives was sort of missing with that. And everyone who's been involved in business travel, grumbled constantly about business travel until they stopped business travel, and then they really miss it. And of course, now we're all back on planes traveling. We're all grumbling about business travel again. Yeah. But the fact is, there's no substitute for that. And I think for people who don't know about you and your company, the one note I'd like to sort of end on, and it's just sort of my personal perspective, is one of the things that's been such a pleasant surprise about watching your business over the years has been that it's a company that actually really does deliver on its brand promise, its people commitment, right? So many businesses talk about this, but don't walk the talk. I don't think I've come across a business that I would say better exemplifies a culture of actually delivering for everybody involved, all the humans involved in the value chain, than your business, Steve. I don't think I could point to another company. If someone said to me, name a business that is truly lives by its own rules when it comes to customers, employees, partners, I think Travel Counsellors, a company that might not be as famous in the States as it is perhaps in the UK, you guys are top of the list. So I think people should take quite seriously what you have to say, and also at face value. So congratulations for that. And I think COVID could have killed a business like yours. I think in some ways you obviously took the right steps to navigate through it. But I also suspect that so many people wanted this business to succeed, that wanted it to thrive, that it came right back because of that.
Well, listen, I appreciate your words. Just a couple of anecdotes to close on. We shared one. We have an internal webcast. We did one today. One of our long-standing travel counselors that does corporate travel was in with us last week. He had a corporate customer, and the travel counsellor got a management fee in place with the corporate customer. So the corporate customer pays them a monthly retainer for booking their travel. The customer insisted that they still paid the travel counsellor the retainer in COVID, even though they weren't travelling, because of the bond that had been forced. And this is a true story. We must have processed £80 million worth of refunds, if not more, during COVID. So the vast majority this didn't apply to, but I did have some customers write to me saying, don't give me all my money back, give it to the travel counsellor, because they knew that they weren't earning. So there's a saying, isn't it? We stand on the shoulders of giants, and if we've got the reputation that we have that you allude to there so kindly, that's because of the brilliant people that we've got. They're the ones that do the hard work and build that rapport, and they're the reason why we've got the reputation and building the success that we have. Our job is just to support, enable them, and you'll know this as much as I do, that there's so many things you can get distracted by, but you have to stick to your fundamentals. And our role is vision, values, strategy, culture and people, and then don't forget about risk. Put those other things in that order.
Steve, thank you very much, and congratulations on where you find yourself today. It was a pleasure talking. Hope to talk again soon.
Thank you very much, Richard. You take care. Nice to chat to you.
Thanks for listening to the CX Iconoclast from OCX Cognition. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss any of our thought-provoking conversations. And please get in touch if you want to learn more about what OCX Cognition's predictive CX analytics platform can do for your business by providing complete insights into every account, continuously updated and connected to operations. You'll find contact info in the show notes.